shattering illusion. You were born into a lie, not a gentle misunderstanding, not an innocent mistake, a lie that was planted in you before you even had the words to resist it. They wrapped it around you like a blanket, but it was not warmth. It was a leash. They whispered into your ears before you could speak. Be good. Be useful. Be accepted. And you believed them. How could you not? Every nod of approval, every smile of acceptance, every pat on the head was dangled in front of you like crumbs. But what they never told you was that the crumbs were poisoned. They trained you to chase them, to beg for them, to starve for them. They made you small so you could be controlled. Think back. Think of the first time you wanted to scream, but were told to stay quiet. Think of the fire that rose in your chest when you knew something was wrong, but they smiled at you and said, "Be kind." Do you remember how your fists clenched under the table, how your teeth dug into your tongue, how your throat burned with words you swallowed? That was the first betrayal. Not theirs, yours. You betrayed yourself because you thought obedience was survival. And from that day forward, the training continued. You were rewarded for softening when you wanted to sharpen, for bowing your head when you wanted to raise it, for making yourself easy to digest, easy to tolerate, easy to forget. They taught you to amputate the wild parts of yourself, one piece at a time, until the only thing left was a hollow figure wearing a polite smile. But here is the truth they never wanted you to hear. The parts of you they told you to bury were the only parts that were truly alive. Your rage wasn't a sin. It was a compass. Your envy wasn't corruption. It was a direction. Your hunger wasn't evil. It was fuel. And when they taught you to fear those instincts, when they told you that growth meant killing them, what they really did was steal your fire and call it virtue. They built a world that fed on your obedience, a society that rewards the tame and forgets the wild. And you fell for it. You clipped your wings before you ever learned to fly, because you thought safety was worth the price of your soul. Look around. Isn't that why you feel hollow now? Isn't that why victories taste like ash in your mouth? Why every path feels borrowed, as if you're walking in someone else's shoes? Isn't that why every achievement you were promised would bring fulfillment leaves you emptier than before? It is not because you are broken. It is because you are missing. The real you is buried alive under the weight of fake smiles, false humility, and a goodness that was never yours to begin with. The worst part? You were praised for it. They clapped when you swallowed your rage. They smiled when you dulled your ambition. They loved you most when you betrayed yourself. And in that applause, in that shallow affection, you thought you were winning. But all you were doing was dying slowly, inch by inch. Let me tell you something no one has ever said to your face. The world never wanted you to be good. It wanted you to be harmless. Goodness, real goodness, requires power. But power was the one thing they never wanted you to touch. So they dressed weakness up as morality and sold it to you like salvation. They told you kindness would protect you, humility would elevate you, selflessness would make you loved. And when you believed it, when you shaped yourself into their obedient model, they used you. And that is why you feel the rot inside now. That is why the silence in your chest is louder than thunder. Because you know, somewhere deep down, that you traded your fire for approval, and approval is a leash, not a crown. Here's the part that burns. You are not empty because you lack purpose. You are empty because you buried it. Your purpose was never going to be found in the light. It was buried in the darkness you were told to avoid. It was etched into the desires you censored, the impulses you silenced, the hungers you shamed. And now, because you killed those instincts in the name of being accepted, you no longer know where you end and where the world's fiction begins. You want to know why you feel invisible? Because you've hidden everything that made you unforgettable. Let me cut through the noise. You are not meant to be pure. You are meant to be dangerous and in control of it. That is what it means to be complete. Not to amputate the shadow, but to own it. They told you to fear your shadow, to treat it as sin, as sickness, as infection. But the truth is the opposite. Your shadow was never the problem. Your denial of it was. Every time you silenced it, you lost direction. Every time you repressed it, you surrendered clarity. Every time you amputated it, you amputated your only chance at being real. The man who represses his instincts becomes aimless, restless, hollow. He lives like a ghost, smiling for acceptance while his insides turn to ash. That is not peace. That is surrender. And that is where you are now, staring into the mirror, wondering why nothing feels real. Wondering why every triumph tastes like defeat. Wondering why every path feels like it belongs to someone else. It is because the story you've been living was never yours. It was a script written for you, to make you obedient, predictable, manageable. But here is where everything begins to shift. Here is where you need to stop lying to yourself. The part of you you've been hiding, the rage, the lust, the hunger, the defiance, that is not your flaw. That is your map. And until you confront it, until you stop apologizing for it, until you stop killing it, you will never know who you are. This is not about indulging it. This is about owning it. Because what you repress becomes your prison, but what you master becomes your weapon. The fire you've been taught to fear is the same fire that was meant to lead you home. The hollow self. You sit in silence, day after day, wearing a mask that feels heavier than your own skin. You tell yourself this is who you are now, polite, agreeable, safe, but deep down, you know it's not true. You are not safe. You are suffocating. The truth is this: you have been trained to abandon yourself. Piece by piece, moment by moment, you traded your instincts for acceptance, and now you don't even know what's left of you. Every time you nodded when you wanted to object, every time you smiled when you wanted to scream, every time you stayed when you wanted to leave, you buried another fragment of yourself. And now you are a graveyard. Do you feel it? That quiet ache in your chest, the one that lingers even when life looks good on paper? The job, the relationship, the house, the applause. And yet, every achievement tastes like ash. Every celebration echoes hollow. You wonder why the joy fades so quickly, why the victories feel borrowed. It's because they are. They were never yours. They belong to the version of you that was manufactured to be accepted. This is why nothing feels real. Because you are not living, you are performing. Let's call it what it is. You've been living a lie. Not the kind of lie that shouts in your face, but the quiet kind, the slow poison, the drip of self-betrayal that seeps into your bones until you mistake it for who you are. You told yourself you were being wise when you stayed silent. You told yourself you were being mature when you swallowed your anger. You told yourself you were being kind when you erased your desires. But the truth is simpler and sharper. You were afraid. And fear is the soil in which hollowness grows. Here's the paradox. People think they are admired for their goodness, but no one respects goodness that comes from weakness. The world does not bow to softness. It exploits it. It dresses obedience up as virtue and calls it success. And you believed it. You spent years polishing your edges, making yourself digestible, so that others could be comfortable around you. And in doing so, you erased yourself. Look closely at the people around you. Notice how they reward your compliance. Notice how they call you easy to be around, so nice, so dependable. They don't admire you. They use you. They admire the fact that you will not make them uncomfortable. They admire the fact that you will not threaten them with your truth. They admire the cage you've built around yourself. But when they leave, when the applause fades, when the room empties and you're left alone, do you feel admired? Do you feel loved? Or do you feel invisible? That invisibility is the cost of betrayal. Not betrayal of them, betrayal of yourself. And the cruel part is this: self-betrayal doesn't feel like sin. It feels like survival. When you were young, it kept you safe. It protected you from rejection, punishment, exclusion. It kept you in the circle. But survival is not the same as living. And now, as the years slip by, survival feels worse than death. Because every day you survive, a little more of you disappears. Do you see it now? The reason you feel restless, aimless, directionless, it's not because you lack purpose. It's because you abandoned it. Purpose doesn't hide in the light. It hides in the places you've been taught to fear, in the desires you silence, in the impulses you shame, in the rage you bury. That's where it has been waiting. But you buried it under 10,000 fake smiles, and now you don't know how to reach it. You chase purpose like a ghost chasing its own shadow. You look for it in jobs, in partners, in applause. But none of it fits because purpose was never out there. It was inside you all along, buried under the corpses of all the selves you killed to be accepted. And this is why you wonder, why you doubt yourself, why you replay every decision in your head, why you hesitate when you should strike. It's because you no longer trust yourself. And how could you? Every instinct you've ever had, you've smothered. Every desire, you've silenced. Every flame, you've put out. Of course you don't trust yourself. You taught yourself that you were dangerous, that your instincts were the enemy, that your shadow was a sickness to be cured. And yet, you can't escape the ache. You can't silence the whispers. No matter how many times you fake the smile, no matter how many times you swallow the truth, something inside you refuses to die. It scratches at the walls you've built. It stays when you see someone living boldly. It burns when you feel envy, rage, hunger. That is not weakness. That is survival. Not survival of the body, but survival of the soul. The real you, the raw, untamed, dangerous you, is still alive, buried but unbroken. And here's the truth you've been avoiding. You cannot kill it. You can only suppress it. And suppression is the reason you feel like a ghost. Let's talk about ghosts. A ghost is not a body. It is not flesh and blood. It is an echo, a shape that lingers after life has gone. And that is what you are now. You move through your days like a ghost, wearing a shape that looks like you, speaks like you, smiles like you, but is not you. You have become a performance of yourself. And every time you smile at someone you despise, every time you nod along to lies, every time you silence the blood that rises in your throat, another light inside you switches off. You think this is peace. You think you're avoiding conflict. But what you're really avoiding is yourself. And every time you do, the ghost grows stronger. Here is the truth you need to face. You are not hollow because you lost your purpose. You are hollow because you gave it away. You surrendered it in pieces, traded it for approval, sold it for applause. And now, the silence in your life is louder than ever. But that silence is not your enemy. That silence is your compass. That silence is the part of you that refuses to die, no matter how many times you betray it. And until you confront it, until you own it, until you let it speak again, you will remain what you are now. A ghost, tolerated but never seen, alive but never living. Owning the shadow. You've spent your whole life being told to fight the wrong enemy. You thought your rage was the problem. You thought your envy was the poison. You thought your hunger was dangerous. But listen carefully. None of these were flaws. None of these were curses. They were instructions. What you call rage was your body's refusal to be mistreated. What you call envy was your heart pointing at the life you secretly wanted. What you call hunger was your spirit refusing to settle for scraps. These were not your enemies. These were your guides. But you believed the lie. You thought silence was wisdom. You thought compliance was growth. You thought killing your instincts was the only way to be loved. And so you amputated yourself. Look at what that cost you. Look at the decades of hesitation, the quiet betrayals, the swallowed truths. Look at the way you doubt yourself now, the way you second-guess every thought, every feeling, every move. Do you know why? It's not because you're lost. It's because you buried your compass. Your shadow was the compass. And the tragedy is that you thought you were saving yourself by hiding it. But all you did was blind yourself. Now you wander in circles, chasing meaning, chasing approval, chasing everything but the one thing that was always inside you, your unfiltered instinct. Let me break something open for you. Your shadow is not your flaw. It is your engine. Every desire you repress becomes a prison. Every desire you master becomes a weapon. Do you understand the difference? When you silence your rage, you lose the clarity that tells you you're being wronged. When you bury your envy, you lose the compass that points toward your secret ambitions. When you kill your hunger, you lose the fire that was meant to drive you beyond mediocrity. And so, piece by piece, you traded weapons for weakness. You traded clarity for confusion. You traded power for approval. And now you wonder why you feel like a ghost. But it doesn't have to stay this way. There's a path back, but it begins in the place you've been running from your entire life. The shadow. Not to indulge it, not to let it rule you, but to own it, to step into the chaos and claim it as yours. This is the difference between being a prisoner of your instincts and being a master of them. The man who represses his shadow becomes enslaved by it. The man who studies his shadow becomes armed with it. So how do you begin? You stop running. Instead of flinching at your darkest thoughts, you study them. Instead of silencing your ugliest desires, you listen to them. Instead of burying your envy, you trace it. Because hidden in all that darkness is a map no one else can read but you. Yes, it will scare you. Yes, it will burn. But this is the only way to stop living like a ghost. Here is your first weapon, the betrayal log. From now on, every time you betray yourself, write it down. Every time you say yes when your blood screams no. Every time you swallow your truth to keep the peace. Every time you shrink to fit into their comfort. Write it down, not for guilt, for clarity, because shame is a compass, and each entry in that log points directly to the places where you abandoned yourself. Follow it back. Trace it to the moments you handed away your fire. Because the only way to reclaim yourself is to face the exact spots where you disappeared. Most people will never do this. Most people will die as ghosts because they cannot bear to look at their own shadow. They will keep smiling, keep nodding, keep betraying themselves until nothing is left. But not you. You are here because you already feel the ache. Because you already know the silence in your chest is not peace, it is starvation. Because you already know you are not born to be tame. You are here because the shadow inside you refuses to die. But listen carefully. Owning your shadow is not the same as unleashing it blindly. A man who unleashes his rage without discipline is not powerful. He is pathetic. A man who indulges his lust without control is not sovereign. He is enslaved. The point is not to be consumed by your darkness. The point is to master it. And mastery begins with honesty. You have spent your life lying to yourself. Telling yourself you didn't care when you did. Telling yourself you didn't want when you burned with hunger. Telling yourself you forgave when rage still roared in your chest. Stop lying. Write it. Own it. Name it. Because the moment you can name your shadow, it stops ruling you in silence. Understand this. A man who cannot betray does not understand loyalty. A man who cannot harm does not understand protection. A man who cannot lie does not understand honesty. If you cannot choose the darkness, your light is meaningless. It is not virtue. It is default. And defaults are never respected. They are used. This is why you feel invisible. This is why they forget you, why they pass you over, why you never leave an impression. Because you've hidden the only part of you that was unpredictable. And without unpredictability, you are forgettable. But your shadow, your envy, your rage, your hunger, that is unforgettable. That is the part of you that makes people step back, that makes people whisper, that makes people wonder. That is the part of you that makes them recalculate before they try to cross you. That is the part of you that is still alive. And it is waiting. Stop calling it evil. Stop calling it sin. Stop calling it weakness. Your shadow is not your curse. It is your edge. And until you claim it, you will remain a ghost in your own life. Power versus virtue. You've been taught to chase virtue as if it were a crown. To be honest, to be kind, to be humble, to be good. But no one ever told you the truth about virtue. It is the most convenient leash society has ever created. They don't want you to be good because goodness is noble. They want you to be good because goodness makes you harmless. And harmless men are easy to control. Machiavelli understood this centuries before psychology gave it a name. He wrote that a ruler must learn how not to be good, not because morality has no place in the world, but because morality alone cannot defend you. A ruler who clings to goodness as his only weapon will be devoured by those who do not. You've seen this in your own life. The soft get trampled. The polite get silenced. The agreeable get forgotten. Goodness without power is not virtue. It is servitude. And servitude is not rewarded. It is exploited. Let's be honest. You've spent years confusing restraint with weakness. You thought staying quiet was maturity. You thought swallowing your anger was wisdom. You thought never saying no was kindness. But those were not virtues. Those were chains. The world never respected you for them. It only used you. Think of the moments when you held your tongue, when you softened your tone, when you gave away your edge in the name of being liked. Did they love you for it? Did they protect you for it? Or did they simply take more, demand more, expect more until there was nothing left of you? That is the cost of false virtue, invisibility. But here's the paradox. Real power does not come from unleashing chaos blindly. Real power comes from containing danger with discipline. The man who screams at every insult is not powerful. He is predictable. The man who strikes without thought is not feared. He is pitied. But the man who has seen his own darkness, who has felt the full force of his rage, his hunger, his lust, his defiance, and can hold it in silence, that man is myth. People don't follow the kindest man in the room. They don't follow the loudest. They don't follow the most righteous. They follow the one whose silence makes them uneasy, the one whose calm feels like a storm held back. Because that man carries weight. He carries the knowledge of his own capacity for danger, and that knowledge bleeds through every glance, every word, every silence. Power is not in the display. Power is in the restraint. When you walk into a room and they don't know what you're capable of, you're just another body. But when they sense the fire behind your eyes, the unspoken storm in your silence, they begin to whisper. They invent stories. They build myths. That is presence. That is sovereignty. Understand this. Ambiguity is power. The world does not mythologize kindness. It mythologizes controlled danger. It mythologizes the man who could destroy but doesn't. The man who could speak but chooses silence. The man whose restraint is mistaken for nobility, but in truth, it is discipline. This is why people whisper about those who never explain themselves. Why they invent legends about those who remain unreadable. Because the human mind fears what it cannot fully see. And here is where you've been destroying yourself. Every time you over-explain, you kill the myth. Every time you rush to prove your intentions, you shrink. Every time you smile too quickly, talk too much, soften your edges, they stop imagining what you could be, and they start seeing what you already are. And what you already are isn't enough to command loyalty. Loyalty is not born from affection. It is born from awe, and awe is born from ambiguity. Think of the men the world reveres. They are not remembered for their goodness. They are remembered for the weight of what they could have done but didn't, for the storms they carried in silence, for the blade they never had to show because everyone already felt its edge. This is the truth you've been blind to. It is not your light that makes you unforgettable. It is your shadow and the discipline to control it. So stop proving yourself. Stop apologizing for your edges. Stop explaining your heart. Let your silence work for you. Let your restraint speak louder than your words. Let them project their fear onto your calm. Because the moment they sense that you could strike but choose not to, they will respect you in a way they never respected your goodness. This is why Machiavelli insisted that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Because love is fickle. Love is conditional. Love is shallow. But fear disciplined by restraint, carves itself into the bones of others. And once they feel it, they will never forget it. Here is the bitter truth. You have spent years chasing respect through love. You thought honesty would earn it. You thought kindness would win it. You thought humility would deserve it. But respect does not come from being good. Respect comes from being dangerous and choosing when to reveal it. Stop trying to be admired for your light. Start being felt for your shadow. Because the world does not bend to virtue. The world bends to fire held in silence. The fire of purpose. You have been waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for certainty. Waiting for permission. You tell yourself you are patient, but deep down, you know the truth. You are afraid. And while you wait, others move. While you rehearse decisions in your head, someone else claims what could have been yours. Not because they were better, not because they were more deserving, but because they acted while you hesitated. Do you see the cruelty of this? You stand frozen, whispering to yourself, one day, when I'm ready, when I'm sure, when the time is right, but there is no right time. There never was. The world belongs to those who burn forward, not those who wait. Here is the lie you've believed. That purpose arrives gently, as a gift, as a voice from above, as a sign in the silence. But the silence will never speak. The silence is not your guide. The silence is your prison. Purpose is not found. It is taken. Think about the fire you feel when envy burns in your chest, when you see someone living the life you wanted. Think about the obsession that gnaws at you when you cannot stop thinking about the thing you're told you shouldn't want. Think about the rage that rises when you're dismissed, ignored, overlooked. You've been taught to call these flaws, but they are not flaws. They are directions. Envy is not poison. It is a compass. It shows you what you secretly desire, but are too afraid to admit. Obsession is not madness. It is clarity. It reveals what you are meant to give your life to. Rage is not sin. It is fire. It shows you where the lines have been crossed, where your soul refuses to bow. You thought these feelings were chains, but they were maps. Do you know why you feel lost? Because you keep burying your own map. Every time you dismiss envy, you turn away from the life you want. Every time you shame obsession, you kill the thing that could drive you. Every time you repress rage, you lose the clarity to know when you are being wronged. And then you wonder why you feel blind, aimless, hollow. It is not because the path isn't there. It is because you refuse to see it. Here is the brutal truth. The shadow has been speaking all along. You just weren't listening. Every flare of rage was a clue. Every jealous thought was a direction. Every violent impulse was a signal. But you silenced them. You told yourself they were evil. You told yourself you were above them. You called them sins, flaws, sicknesses. And so the path remained invisible, not because it didn't exist, but because you were too moral to see it. Purpose does not arrive as light. Purpose arrives as fire. And fire is not gentle. Fire does not ask for permission. Fire consumes. This is why hesitation kills. Hesitation is not maturity. Hesitation is rot. Think of the moments you hesitated, the opportunities you replay in your head, the relationships you wanted to claim but didn't, the battles you wanted to fight but delayed. You tell yourself you were being wise, patient, cautious, but in truth, you were betraying yourself. And every hesitation compounded. Every hesitation layered on top of the last until you drowned under the weight of everything you didn't do. Most people will die this way. Not from cruelty, not from violence, but from hesitation, from waiting for a clarity that will never come, from waiting for certainty while their soul rots from within. But you don't have to. You can stop waiting. You can stop kneeling. You can stop asking. You can take. This is what Machiavelli knew. He never spoke of goodness in theory. He spoke of reality. And reality belongs to those who move, not those who wait for permission, not those who wait to be noticed, not those who wait for the world to hand them meaning. Reality belongs to those who seize it. Here is the shift. Stop treating envy as shame. Start treating it as a compass. Stop treating obsession as a flaw. Start treating it as fuel. Stop treating rage as danger. Start treating it as fire. Trace it back. The moments you hated, the obsessions that woke you at night, the desires you buried because you were afraid to admit them. These are not curses. They are keys. Keys to a purpose so raw, so personal, that no one else could understand it. And that is the point. It was never meant for them. It was meant for you. Most people confuse hope with purpose. They sit in silence, hoping the world will notice their goodness, hoping one day someone will reward them for being so kind, so humble, so patient. But the world is not watching. And even if it was, it does not care. And so they rot, not because they lacked fire, but because they never dared to light it. But you're different. You can feel the burn in your silence, the hunger beneath your patience, the violence behind your stillness. That is not a curse. That is the beginning. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting to be loved for your softness. You are not meant to be loved for being tame. You are meant to be feared for your fire. Purpose will never come dressed in approval. It comes with cost, with isolation, with pain, with the burn of walking alone. But it also comes with sovereignty, with clarity, with power. You will not be remembered for how kind you were. You will be remembered for the fire you carried and the world you burned through with it. This is the shift. You don't need light. You need fire. You don't need permission. You need hunger. You don't need clarity. You need rage. And the moment you stop waiting is the moment you begin. The reckoning. You have survived long enough. Survived the silence. Survive the betrayal. Survive the endless days of playing small, of bending, of erasing yourself. But survival is not living. Survival is a slow death. Survival is the quiet rot of a man who has forgotten his fire. And you feel it. You feel it every time you say yes when your throat aches to say no. You feel it every time you swallow the blood in your mouth, every time you nod along with lies, every time you smile at people you despise. Each time, another light inside you goes out. You tell yourself it's compromise, but compromise repeated becomes character. And the character you've built is not you. It's a shadow, a mask, a performance designed to be tolerated. But tell me this, is tolerance what you were born for? To be allowed? To be small enough to avoid rejection? To be polite enough to earn applause that dies the moment you turn your back? No, you know better. You feel it in the ache that refuses to leave, the hunger that no approval ever satisfies, the silence that grows louder with every self-betrayal. That ache is not weakness. It is memory, the memory of the man you were before you killed him. The real original sin is not defiance. It is self-abandonment. And you have been repenting for the wrong crime. Listen carefully. Most people are broken not by cruelty, but by hope. They keep hoping the world will notice their goodness. They keep hoping someone will see them, reward them, crown them for their patience. But the world isn't watching. And even if it was, it does not care. Light reveals. Fire consumes. While you've been trying to glow, someone else has been setting the room on fire. They don't need to be noticed. They need to be felt. That is what you have missed. You thought your pain was weakness, but it was fuel. You thought your shadow was sin, but it was your weapon. You thought your hunger was shame, but it was your map. You weren't born to shine. You were born to burn. The moment you stop seeking permission is the moment you reclaim everything they stole from you. The moment you stop asking to be seen is the moment you become unforgettable. The moment you stop apologizing for your darkness is the moment you become untouchable. Because the world cannot control a man who no longer fears its judgment. This is the reckoning. Stop softening your edges. They were never meant to be filed down. Stop apologizing for your intensity. It was never a flaw. Stop burying your hunger. It is not sickness. It is signal. Stop chasing light. Start carrying fire. You don't need to be harmless. You don't need to be kind enough, soft enough, digestible enough. You need to be a consequence, a reckoning, a storm contained in silence. Because people don't fear kindness. They don't fear light. They fear the man who has seen his own darkness and chooses when to unleash it. They fear the man who doesn't need to scream to be heard, whose silence feels like a blade against their comfort. They fear the man who has stopped waiting for permission. That is presence. That is sovereignty. That is power. And once you own it, once you stop hiding, the world will no longer look at you with affection. They will look at you with caution. They will whisper about you. They will invent stories about what you've done, what you've survived, what you could become. They will mythologize you, not because you are kind, not because you are noble, but because you carry fire they cannot touch. That ambiguity is power. That silence is power. That shadow, owned and mastered, is power. You have begged long enough. You have knelt long enough. You have waited long enough. Now it ends. This is your reckoning. This is the moment you stop being a ghost. This is the moment you stop apologizing for the fire in your chest. You are not born to be small. You are not born to be kind enough for them to love you. You are not born to be light in a world that devours light. You are born to be fire, to scorch your shape into the world, to walk into rooms and make the air shift, to be felt, not just seen, to be feared, not just loved, to be untouchable,